we're going to get started now and create our own piano right from scratch, no pun intended. Click on the File menu and then select New. Every new project that gets created has a cat sprite. In this case, we're not going to need that, so I'm going to go ahead, right-click on that sprite and delete it. Get started by creating our first sprite with the paintbrush button here, Paint New Sprite. And then I'm going to create something that hopefully looks like a piano key. And it's important that we draw this, our first white key. A few things. It needs to be big enough that we can fit 8 of them in this area over here in the top left. And it needs to be wide enough that when we add the black keys, there's room in it. It looks proportionally a little bit like what a piano would look like. So we also want to make this first piano key with a white center. So I've selected the Fill with Color tool, and I've selected a close to white color, and now we can fill the center. The other thing we want to do is go ahead and label this key with black text and call it C, because it is the note C. After you've typed, if you hit escape, you'll notice the selector for that text box is still there, so you can use the arrow keys to put the text more precisely where you'd like it to be. We want to have a second costume as well. That the only difference will be that it has a different color, so that when you click on the key, you can give some user feedback that's been clicked on. So we'll duplicate this first key. First one's white, second one's white now too, but we're going to use the Fill with Color tool again to give it a slightly gray background. So there's our first white piano key, and you'll see over here whichever costume you have selected is how it displays here. So we want to get this towards the bottom left-hand side over here so that we have room up here for our instrument selector, and hopefully somewhere we'll have room left over as well for a button that we can use to play Happy Birthday when we're done. So now we're going to move on, and we have to create the instrument selector, and we do that by going to the Scripts tab and selecting data and telling it we want to make a variable. And for all sprites is important, because when we select the instrument, we want that to apply to all the keys. So we're going to call this instrument selector. And you can see that caused the instrument selector to show up here. And now we're going to tell it we want a slider. And the interesting thing here is if we look at the instruments, you can see that it starts with number 1, which is piano, and synth pad, which is 21. So the only valid numbers that you can set the instrument to go from 1 to 21. So while we're looking at this, we're going to right-click on the instrument selector, and we're going to set the minimum and max values that you can select, starting at 1 and going to 21. Important that we have this now, because before we can build the scripts for this key to play the note that we want, we're going to have in that code is going to be a piece that tells it what instrument to set before we play the note. So now we have the instrument selector available to do that. So now we're going to go to build the code, the programming scripts for this first sprite. So if we select this and we have the Scripts tab selected, we can now determine the programming that happens when you click on this key. So the first thing we're looking for is called an event, and that's when this sprite gets clicked. So when somebody clicks on the piano key, that's when we want things to happen. And the first thing we want to have happen is to set the instrument to whichever instrument is selected here. So we'll pull this up here and snap it together. And then when we select data, we can take this instrument selector and actually drop it right in. You'll notice how that receptor turns white when it's in the right place. So when you click on this key, the instrument is going to get set to whatever the instrument selector is currently set to. And then we want to switch the costume so that it looks like the gray key, just temporarily. And then we're going to play a note. So we want to play note 60 for half a beat, and then we're going to wait for 0.1 seconds, and then we're going to switch the costume back to costume 1. Now you'll notice when we click on this key, it plays the note. It briefly turns the background key of the color of the key to gray. So this exact script is what we want for all the other keys as well. The only difference in the other scripts is going to be that we want them to play different notes. So later on we're going to come back and change the setting for this one particular instruction in the script. For now though, we need to build the 8 remaining white keys and the 5 black keys. So we start that. Before we start that, let's actually rename this sprite to the name of the musical note that it's playing. Now when we duplicate this, we can put that key beside the other one, and we can rename it to D. We need to also then come in and change the costume label so that it shows a D as well. So I'm going to use the select tool to highlight the C here, and then hit the delete key to get rid of it, and insert a new D. Escape, and then position that where we want it. And we do the same for costume 2. And now you'll see when you click over here, the second key is showing up as a D. It's still playing the same note as the first one. You can do this part later on, or you can do it as you build the 2 keys. So now I'm just going to change that to the D key, and now you'll notice we get a different sound. And we have plenty of room for the remaining 6 keys and room for the black keys. So we'll carry on this process until we have all the white keys, and then the next video will carry on and show you how to do the black ones.